Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
Ooh, lucky bus.
Are you being sarcastic or something, my son?
Fool, you should never mix your drinks.
What are you, retarded?
We'll have to take this abuse much longer.
You're a fool! You're a fool! You're a fool!
Oh, that's what we call diarrhea.
You think this is a fucking joke? This ain't Kenny camera. There's no hidden cameras.
Oh shit, I've said fuck, oh fuck, I've said shit!
Back in Oz, get a weapon collector Ross.
I could knock him out in the shed.
Are you kidding me? That is crazy.
I want a katana, a pistol, a shotgun, and a machine gun.
Stop it, please. For God's sake, please stop it. There's no more time.
Is this not why you are here?
Right everyone, WeaponCollector here. Right, it's World UFO Day today, so to celebrate that I thought I would do a video with your encounters and sightings of UFOs. So I've had a lot of people send in stories, videos, pictures, so it should be quite an interesting video I reckon. Right now I have no idea how long this video is going to go on for, because I'm just recording this intro, then I'm going to edit it all together. Hopefully it's reasonably long, but I don't think it's going to be as long as the Halloween video I did. Definitely not. So what I'm going to do, I plan to, while you're watching this, you would have seen that there's a live chat down the side so we can all talk about it. I won't do this intro for too long, we get into the interesting bits in a minute. But what we do is, when this video finishes, I recommend going to my channel and then just refreshing every now and then, because another live stream will come on afterwards where we can talk about UFOs for a bit more and talk about the video. So what you're going to see now are the stories that were sent in, including two of my own. One is something that actually happened this Friday, so last week. Pure coincidence, not planned obviously. I just thought while I was out there, because I was having a night out in the field, I thought, let's film the skies and see what happens. And something did. And then I'll tell you my other story a little bit later. So let's get on to the first one, which will be my one. There's some swearing in it and I'm drunk, so just be aware of that. I will come back after my one's played just to talk to you about it. Then I'll tell you my other story, and then we get down to everyone else's story, and I won't be back on until the very end. Alright? I hope you enjoy it. I'm back in a minute. I don't know how much you're going to see of this, but I thought while I was out in the evening, I'll see if I could catch a UFO. You're going to have to listen to some people chatting bollocks in the background though, so I'm having a night out. Can't see no one, but... I'm pointing the camera up at the sky. Can you see any stars? Nah, it doesn't look like it.
Yeah.
Don't look like you can see anything. Well, no, but it won't show up to the sky anyway, will it? I wanted to try and... But look. Yeah, look, even if I do that, look, it's a black.
Yeah, it's black screen. You can't see nothing.
Fuck it, don't matter. No. You're never gonna see this, but there is some fucking UFOs, look. I've actually fucking filmed them. What is in the sky right now?
UFOs.
I don't know what they are.
Well, what is a UFO? It's not an alien ship, it's
It's an unidentified flying object.
Exactly.
So, that's aliens.
On the night that we was going to film for UFOs, we actually fucking seen some UFOs.
It's the Russians.
Can you see them on yours, Joe?
No.
I can't either. I can't either. What?
Put them in on CG after. They've gone now, they've disappeared.
They actually have disappeared. Well, what is a UFO? It's not an alien ship, it's a...
Unidentified flying object.
That's aliens.
On the night that we was going to film for UFOs, we actually fucking seen some UFOs.
Yeah, okay, there's some nothing coming up on there.
Can you see them on yours, Joe?
No. Can't see them on mine, man. Put them in on CG after. They've gone now, they've disappeared.
So there you go. I don't know if you could actually see it on the video, but there was a series of orange dots in the sky, going across the sky quite weirdly. It was obviously Chinese lanterns. But it might not have been, but my opinion at the time was it was Chinese lanterns. But it was funny that at the time, you know, technically that is an unidentified flying object, so it sort of does count. And there's no proof it was Chinese lanterns. So yeah, quite a strange one though, wasn't it? That suddenly, yeah, actually happened that night. 2 bits of footage. You may be able to see it, I'm not sure. I couldn't really see it, but you may have slightly different settings on your phones or your computers and that. You might have been able to hold it in a way that you could actually see these things going along and then disappearing. Yeah. So, that's my one. My only other encounter I've ever had with anything UFO related was... It's hard for me to try and remember the age I was, but I suspect I was younger than 12. And I was having a backie on someone's bike. I think I was, as far as I remember, I was stood on the trick nuts. You know, you get those little handled trick nuts things you can stand on. So riding along, my mate's riding along, and I've got my hands on his shoulder, stood on the back. And I suspect it, I can't remember, it wasn't dark, it definitely wasn't dark, but it was probably sort of just getting dark as far as I remember. And we came down an alleyway into my road, because my road's like a dead end. And one of the only ways into it is either the road in or an alleyway in. There's various ways in, but one of them's come down this alleyway, and then you're just facing a lovely straight road, and then, you know, a nice sort of sky view, basically, you know. So, come out the alleyway, come down the road. So we're coming down the road, and I can't remember who was riding. It may have been Mark, it may have been someone else, maybe my cousin. I have no idea who was riding the bike now. But as we came around came onto the road, I looked up into the sky and saw this great big oval shaped thing in the sky, completely lit up, like it was, you know, that's how to explain it, but it was just a completely lit up rugby shaped thing in the sky. It shocked me so much. I remember jumping off the back of the bike and just standing there looking at it, thinking, you know, fucking hell, what the hell is that? Never seen anything like it. And it was really slowly moving across the sky. And it was massive as well. It looked massive anyway. You know, when you're younger, things look bigger than you think. But I couldn't believe it for a second. And I looked around, and I'm sure, as far as I remember, there was other people stood out staring at this thing as it just went across the skies. And I ran down the road to get a closer look. And that's when I realised what it was. It was like a hot air balloon type thing. You know, like a... I don't know what they're called, but I described them as like a blimp. You know, like the big... But it was just... didn't look like there was anything underneath that would be piloting it, and it didn't have the fins on the back. But that's what it was. It was that. It wasn't a spaceship or anything. But I can remember the feeling at the time, like how shocking it was. So I imagine if you saw something that you never ever understood what it was, that must be quite freaky. Because I remember seeing that and being shocked and being like scared and what the fucking hell is that? You know, you cannot believe it. Slightly disappointing when you find out these things aren't what they are. But yeah, I can imagine if you saw something like that and never ever worked out what it was, that must be quite a shocking event to have. So that's the two UFO encounters I've had. One the other night that was probably just Chinese lanterns, and that one which was a hot air balloon type thing. So that's the end of my stories. I won't be back on this video till the end of it, but I'll be in the chat to talk to you. So hopefully you've been having a chat about what you've seen and what you think of these things. Now we'll get on to everyone else's stories. Some of it will be videos, some of it will be pictures, some of it will just be statements that people have put on, just to bolster the fact that a lot of people have seen these type of things, but they really can't explain it, and it's just, I've seen it and that's it. So I'll add those in just to show how many people do say they have seen things. Alright, so I hope you enjoy it, keep watching, don't forget to watch to the very end, and then don't forget to go and watch the live stream and join that. Josh Almighty. I don't have a video, but here's my story. I was 17 and me and my mum were on a balcony at our apartment complex. There were over 50 people out that day, most at the pool. There was a family cooking out. I started hearing kids and then people yelling. Me and my mum followed the points to a low-flying object, jet black and perfectly round. It was slowly flying towards us. Everyone yelling UFO immediately fell silent as the ball rolled open. It stretched out into a form, a 40-foot Greek godlike figure. With the wings of an angel, began to flap his wings not 20 feet above us. I remember his face, his yellow eyes, as he looked down at me and smiled. I don't tell this story. I don't want to remember. This exactly happened to me, and it breaks apart my scope of reality. Maybe someone else has had a similar experience. Thanks for listening.
Good morning, everyone. This is a response video to WeaponCollector, one word, in England. Respectable guy. I respect him very much. Okay, the event that I witnessed and my brother witnessed was probably 1974, somewhere in there. We were both about 10 or 12 years old. I live in the Puget Sound area in Washington State, and that's on the west coast of the U.S., in case you don't know. At that time, Washington State was a backwater. There was very little heavy industry, and it was one of those bright summer nights where there was no clouds and there was no light pollution. It was clean and safe area to grow up in. And we lived in a farming community. It was normal for us kids to get together and spread out blankets and spend the night sleeping outside. It was really safe here back then. And one night, it was just my brother and I. We're looking for shooting stars. That's what we did, you know. And we're just laying out there talking. Just my brother's at my left, and I said, "Hey, look, right up there, those stars are moving." They were moving like this. A couple of them, 2 or 3 of them. And that's what caught our attention, to look way out there to the west. And they were swirling and moving and making rapid movements like this, and then they would do pinwheel this way, this way. There was 2 or 3 of them. My brother said, look, there's more of them over here. So he pointed out another group of them. We watched those things so long that we got off the blankets and we got 2 of those reclining lawn chairs and laid there and watched these things for a long time. I don't know how long. This group over here joined this group, and it was like one at a time. I mean, these things were covering ground, man. Whoosh. Then they would pinwheel together, move like this and that, and pinwheel. So the 2 groups basically came together, and they were whirling around. Like 2 or 3 of them would whirl around like this, while another one would go up over here. It was absolutely unexplainable. They were just pinhole lights. They're tiny. And when they decided to depart, all of them, one of them broke off, and I remember it went to the south, and it was just like gone, out of sight. It's just gone like that fast. Then they started breaking off. No sound, nothing. Gone, gone, gone. Most of them looked like they stayed out over the Pacific. I cannot explain it. They were making maneuvers that nothing that we had at the time that we knew of was able to do. Now, the few satellites back in 1973, 74, they were not satellites. And if those objects were government of some kind, then they've had these things for a long time. Think about it. That 73, 74, yeah, they've had them for a long time. If they came from this planet, I have no clue. I have no clue where they came from or what they were. That's my input for your video, Mike. So thanks for watching, everyone. Later.
Outdoor Sports CMA 39. UFOs are 100% real, just not the blibbering aliens on the way home from a day's work of zapping earthlings to Pluto for a pint or 2 at their local space pub. The first recorded UFO was invented for the Germans in the 1930s by an Austrian called Victor Schauberger. He was forced to work for them. He didn't support the regime. Speaking of him, he invented amazing concepts before and after that. Solo. Definitely have a look at them when you have the time. He was forced to give his papers to the Americans just 5 days before he died, and after a while the US Army was supposedly testing prototypes that it had built from Hanabu blueprints. Interesting stuff, but it does spoil the mystery a bit, I suppose. Lap bricks. Hey Mike, I have these 2 back-to-back videos from 4 years ago. Nothing too convincing, but somewhat interesting how the light in the sky just disappears. Hope these work for you. SRS Power. My granddad worked in radar for the RSRE and was employed to investigate UFOs for a few years. He told me the old argument about how many stars there are meant that there must be life out there somewhere, but he had no evidence of this. But extra-dimensional beings, he knew for sure. Z not Z. This took place in around 2003. I was working in a grass cutting team for a grounds maintenance company, and we were on our way to the firm's twin cab to yet another bit of grass that had to be cut. Whilst we were driving along, one of the other team members, who I shall call Osbert, a very religious fellow who was also a liar, a thief, and a bit of a pervert as well, looked out of his window and said in a somewhat shaky voice, "What's that thing?" I looked past him and saw something that looked like a huge and elongated cold antibiotic capsule shape moving quite slowly across the sky at a bit of an angle to us. The thing was a sort of silvery white, or whitish silver, whichever you prefer, with a line of black vertical ovals along its side, about 1/8 of the thing's height. I could see no control surfaces of any kind, nor any obvious signs of propulsion. My first thought was that it might be an airship of some kind, but airships have fins and gondolas, and this didn't, which also ruled out any kind of dirigible. I have to say that I found it quite fascinating myself. However, Osbert didn't find it fascinating at all. He found it very, very scary, and started to get rather agitated. I think he thought it was a demon of some kind, come for his soul, which given his nature would have been understandable. After all, what's the point of demons if they don't get people like Osbert? He was starting to get into a real panic, telling the driver to go fast, who obviously didn't much like the look of the thing either, and had sped up already, and getting very close to a complete freak-out stage. So to calm him down, I told him it was just a very big Russian aircraft, an Antonov AN-124, in case anyone was interested. Bloody thing's huge, they are too, very impressive. Very often turn up at our local airport where I used to work, which calmed things down a fair bit. Of course I was lying, it looked nothing like any aircraft I'd ever seen before or since. As we watched, the thing moved quite sedately upwards and disappeared into the lowest clouds. In order to get a better idea of the thing's size, I later looked up some photographs of the Hindenburg airship, and I'd say that this was slightly shorter, but had a greater circumference. Of course, I only saw it at an angle, so it might not be correct. So what was it? An alien aircraft? An interdimensional vehicle? A time machine? Or something some government or other was playing around with? Damned if I know. It was interesting, though.
Hello, so this is going to be my UFO story for Mike's video on UFOs or aerial phenomenon. And this is one I've told before because it's one where we found out what it actually was. It was a UFO until it was an identified flying object, so it went from UFO to an IFO. So basically, one night outside my house, this was years ago, loads of people were staring up at something in the sky, so we went out as well to look. And there was like a light flying around, you know, where you couldn't see anything, you couldn't hear any noise, but you could see like a bright glowing light that was sort of going around, and it wasn't going in a straight line, you know, it would go one way and then it would go up a bit and then it would go backwards, you know, like that. So it was moving in a way like a helicopter couldn't move and a plane couldn't move, and it was too low altitude to be those anyway. It was very, very weird. And eventually, I think it went into the path of a street light, and we were actually able to see what it was, and it was one of those Chinese lanterns. So what they are, if you don't know, it's a bit like a tiny hot air balloon. It's basically where there's kind of like a paper lantern, and you have a sort of candle type thing in it. I'm not sure exactly how they work, but you can look them up. And the heat or the sort of gas coming off from the fire works like a hot air balloon to make it float up. You know, it would basically work in a very similar way as if you had a helium balloon and put a light on a helium balloon, like a flashing light on a helium balloon, in the sense that when it's floating around in the dark, unless there's another light source, you won't be able to see what the object is. All you see is the light on it. So with a Chinese lantern, it'd be the candle. If it was a helium balloon, you know, you'd see the flashing light on it. And obviously where it was picking up different air currents and like the wind and stuff, it was moving with the wind and like, you know, updrafts of air maybe from people's chimneys and stuff like that. So that was the reason why it was floating around, and it would suddenly change direction, you know, and move at different speeds. But until you actually saw what it was in the light, it seemed to be like, you know, a light that could break all the laws of sort of physics in the sense of, you know, how a plane would travel, for example, because it could just literally turn on the spot, you know, and go backwards. So yeah, if ever you see a light in the sky that's not super high altitude and it's moving in weird ways, it might be a Chinese lantern or a helium balloon with a light on it, because that sort of, if you think about it, would probably explain a lot of the weird lights people see in the sky that, you know, don't have any reasonable explanation. Obviously, if it's much higher like an aircraft, then it'd be obviously something different, but if it's just sort of a low-level weird light moving around, it's probably a balloon or a lantern that's just sort of floating around in the wind.
Z not Z. This story takes place during the summer of 1976, the summer of burning hell as I like to call it. Myself and a friend were on our motorbikes We each had a Honda CB200, as we hadn't yet passed our bike tests. Riding through what is very pretty countryside in the daylight, returning from visiting some friends in the next county. At around 1:30 on a still and breezeless Saturday morning. We'd gotten about halfway back when we decided to stop for a cigarette and park the bikes on the wide roadside verge. There was a moment of excitement when my friend lit a cigarette the wrong way round and got a lungful of filter. The cool brand of cigarettes at the time were the More brand, which had dark brown colour all over, so it was easy enough to do in the dark. After he'd finished coughing and swearing, I was quite impressed at how well he did the two things at the same time. He lit another one the right way round, and we stood by the bikes enjoying our smokes and looking into the clear starry sky. After about 30 seconds, a bright light stabbed downwards and lit up the side of a nearby hill. I first thought it was a military helicopter. We wondered what they were up to. My friend, who had a somewhat fanciful imagination, thought they might have been after a spy or maybe a saboteur. I thought it was more likely that it was just crew doing some nighttime navigation training and were shining the light to look for landmarks. Then we realised we couldn't hear any helicopter noises. We couldn't see what was shining the light either, which we thought was a bit odd. The light moved slowly across the hill till it was shining on the other slope. Then suddenly, whatever it was, suddenly dropped downwards far faster than you'd expect from a helicopter or aircraft and disappeared behind the hill. My friend said something like, "Fucking hell, they're crashing," or something like that anyway. I can't remember exactly. We were waiting for the sounds of an impact or even an explosion, but there were none. After a few seconds we looked at each other and said, "That's strange." My friend replied that it wasn't just strange, it was bloody weird, and that he didn't much like it. I had to admit that I wasn't too keen on it either, and when my friend said he thought that whatever it was couldn't have been from this planet, otherwise it would have crashed, I didn't disagree with him. Anyway, that thought was enough for us. The smokes were hurled away, the bikes were quickly started, and we were off. All I can say is that it was a good job there was no plot about, as we'd have got a nasty fine for speeding that night, if there had been. As to what it was, I still can't say, as we never saw what it was that was shining the light, which I suppose does mean it was unidentified. And I often wondered what that thing might have been, but I still can't come up with an answer, so I'll leave it to everyone else to come up with suggestions. David. Just an interesting video I captured last year. It's not a UFO, unfortunately. It's the planet Venus. I noticed a very, very bright light in the sky last year. It hung about for a couple of weeks, traversing across the sky in a planetary motion. I had no idea what it was at first. I've never seen it so bright. Ever. Anyway, got the camcorder out and filmed it from the bedroom window. When using the digital zoom to the max, it turns into this weird shape. I'd seen a similar video posted on YouTube, and an explanation of the weird shape was something to do with the imaging chip sensor trying to focus on something that far away, or something like that. Anyway, thought I'd share it even though it's not a UFO. Timbo66. Not much of a story. I once saw a small silver object circling the moon at about 20 revolutions per minute, about 30 years ago. I do a bit of astronomy. Sure, there's life out there somewhere. Eliane. Seen many a UFO myself. No one ever believes me.
Hello everybody, CM Militaria here, and today I wanted to share my UFO/weird sightings. So this happened many years ago. It was probably 12 years ago, when I was probably around 7, 8, around about that age. I was over my nan and granddad's near where I live in the countryside. It was probably around about 7 o'clock at night, 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, around about that time, coming home to my house. When I stepped outside, we were just looking around in the air at the night sky as you do normally, and all the stars were out, you know, how it is, how the normal night sky is, and then I saw this very weird black object. Now, like I said, to this day, I'm still not sure what it is. I'm not sure if it was a B-2 stealth bomber that was just at a weird angle to me. Yeah, I'm really not sure what it was, but it was this weird triangle black object. If I do manage to find a picture of what it kind of looked like, I will put it on screen. But yeah, I'm still not totally sure what it was. Like I said, it could have been a B-2 stealth bomber. I could have just caught it at the wrong angle. But yeah, it was there, it had lights on it. It was stationary, it wasn't moving. Then all of a sudden, I stopped looking because my nan wanted me to help her do something in the house again before we went. And I came back outside and it was gone. So yeah, what do you guys think about this? I'm really not sure what this was, but if you have any information, I'd love to see it in Mike's comments.
Zed not Z. This account happened a couple of years ago. Happened on a slightly cloudy late summer night at around midnight. I just finished putting the birds breakfast out for them and was standing on the doorstep enjoying my last smoke of the day when I became aware of the sound of a jet aircraft approaching from an odd direction. It was nowhere near the usual flight paths from the local airport, which was odd to start with. Plus it was loud, and it was getting louder. So the aircraft was obviously flying quite a bit lower than the usual airliner would, which again was strange. Suddenly something flew over the top of my house. I couldn't actually see what it was, but again, strangely, it wasn't showing any navigation lights. Just two bright white lights, about the distance apart that a twin-engined airliner wingtips would be. Other than that, it showed no lights whatsoever. Sorry to use the same word again, but it was also strange. It carried on in a northeasterly direction, and it was shifting like a good one. I then realised that the noise was still coming from behind me, and was still getting louder. So it wasn't the thing that had just flown over me making it. Then the aircraft that was making such a racket flew over me. This one was also going like a bat out of hell, but was showing navigation lights. It was also somewhat smaller than the first one, and was about the size of a Typhoon or an F-15. My money would be a Typhoon. It was quite obvious that it was chasing the first thing, as it was following the same course. I watched for a minute or so until both of them disappeared into the darkness. The second one didn't seem to be gaining on the first, from what I could tell, but was giving it a damn good go without going supersonic. At first I thought it might have been some Russian military aircraft that had strayed inland during one of their Let's Annoy the RAF flights. But if that was the case, why did it not show any navigation lights? They normally keep within the regulations for that sort of thing, I believe. And if it was something more clandestine, then they wouldn't show any lights at all, as that would be rather defeat the object of their mission. I don't know what the first thing was at all, but I think it was something that the military didn't like the look of. The next day my neighbours were complaining about the noise, which woke them up, but none of them got out of bed to see what was making it, unfortunately. So that's it. If anyone can come up with a logical explanation for what I saw, I'd be very interested to hear it. By the way, I don't live that far from the sighting in the first story. Maybe 5 or 6 miles as the crow flies.
Phenomena. Do 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 do. Phenomena. Do 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 do. Phenomena. Do 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 do. I hadn't even heard the term unidentified aerial phenomena until very recently. I always just used to go with UFO, but I think actually unidentified aerial phenomena much better suits what I saw up here. I'm up on top of Dunstable Downs, which is on the northern edge of the Chiltern Hills in southeastern England, and this was a hangout spot. When I was about 18-19 years old, me and a few of my mates all had old VWs that we'd customised, you know, and we used to come and hang out up here at night, have fires and stuff. None of which you can do anymore, it's all a lot more managed. The rain's getting heavy. What I saw was just down there. I'm going to go and jump back in the car and we shall discuss it further. This rain's going nowhere. But this is the location. Anyway, I was parked at the time. I wasn't in this car park. I was parked just over there, where it's just grass. You used to be able to park just on the grass, but we're talking down there, just beyond the glider club. I think actually it was slightly more in that direction towards Wellhead, where there are lots of springs, interestingly, because what I think this was that I saw has been, you know, quite closely associated with springs and chalk aquifers. Anyway, this is too much. I'm going to go over the shed. I'll see you there. So much rain. Getting soaked. I didn't choose the right day for this, did I? Right. Let's go and sit down in the dry. When in doubt, jam jar. Right, where were we? We were in 1992, I think. Actually, before we go to 1992, very briefly, my very first UFO experience, I was about 4 or 5 years old, and it was Christmas morning. And I looked out the lounge window, the little house we lived in at the time, and I saw what in hindsight was obviously a meteor. I saw this meteor go flashing across the sky in front of the moon. It was early morning, so it was still dark. And I remember rushing upstairs to tell Mum and Dad that I'd just seen Santa Claus flying back to Greenland before it gets light. I think I might have been confusing Santa Claus with vampires at the time, I don't know. But yeah, that was a meteor I saw when I was very small. And I didn't think it was a UFO. I thought it was Santa. But I think it counts, doesn't it? It does count as a UFO. Back to 1992. I was sat at the top of the downs there where we just were in the rain. Sitting there in my Beetle. And for some reason I was the only one there. I can't remember why. I don't know if I'd got there before everybody else or whatever. No idea. I can't remember what time of year it was, but it was dark. I was sitting up there on my own one night, and off in the distance, down where I showed you on the lower ground, just beyond the gliding club, I could see this ball of light. It was a kind of blue. It wasn't a warm yellowy orangey light. It was a bluish white light. Difficult to tell exactly how big it was. I'd guess somewhere between a tennis ball and a netball, basketball, you know, football, that sort of size. And it was moving in a manner which seemed intelligently controlled to me. I was sitting there watching this thing, and you could see it down roughly at ground level most of the time. It was kind of hovering above what I perceived to be about ground level. It was dark, remember. What helped me sort of decide it was at ground level was because as it was moving along, I could see it coming on and off as it went past bushes and trees in front of it. You could see it flickering in and out of your line of sight as it went behind the bushes and the trees. And there's lots of little mounds and hills and things down there as well. And it wasn't just moving horizontally. Every now and then, it'd rise dead vertically to, I don't know, a height of not much, 20-30 feet maybe. It'd slowly and very deliberately looking rise up to a height of 20 or 30 feet, pause, come back down again, and then continue its horizontal. You know, it looked like it was being controlled somehow. It didn't look like a very random natural phenomena. Now I just sat and watched it. It was a fair bit off in the distance. Didn't seem to be any sort of threat or anything like that, you know. I was just sitting there watching it. It was all very entertaining. And then after, I don't know, I'd say, this didn't go any longer than maybe 4 minutes, something like that. And I can't remember how it disappeared. I can't remember if it faded out. It certainly didn't do anything as dramatic as shooting off into space or anything like that. I think it just kind of went behind a tree and never came out again, you know. I didn't perceive it as a UFO. I didn't know what to make of it. But me being the earthy kind of fella that I am, I just set it in my mind for the fun of it. I set it in my mind that maybe I'd seen a will-o'-the-wisp. You know, one of these old traditional sort of spirit things that I don't know if you remember the Kenneth Williams animated series from the early 80s. Will-o'-the-wisp. It's a spirit that wanders around at night, you know. I'd sort of put it in my head, oh, maybe that's what I saw, that'd be good, wouldn't it, you know. And I mentioned this in a Halloween video that went on Mike's channel, and our mate Zed, Mr. Z not Z, he suggested that maybe what I'd seen was ball lightning. Now, I used to read the 14 Times. I'm kind of aware of ball lightning, but I've never really looked at videos of it or anything like that. And that name, ball lightning, the lightning bit, it makes you just think, oh, up in the sky. And this thing I saw, it was pretty much at ground level. But I started looking up some videos and some footage of ball lightning, and yeah, that's what I saw. I'm 99% certain that was ball lightning. It's no disappointment though to learn that was probably ball lightning, because ball lightning itself is an absolute mystery to science. Nobody's got any idea what this stuff is. You just have to go on Wikipedia and you'll see a list of, I don't know what, 12 to 15 different scientific theories as to what ball lightning might actually be. It's so rare and random, nobody can measure it, nobody can test it. And I'm extremely lucky to have seen it, you know. So the fact that it wasn't some earth spirit and the fact that it wasn't aliens really doesn't matter. What I saw was something very rare and special. Some of these theories, they say it's kind of residual ionized air left over after a lightning strike. Other theories say that it's to do with the amount of silica and calcium in the soil. Well, calcium in the soil, yes, I can see that, because we're on a big old load of chalk here, and a couple of 100 feet down below that chalk are vast freshwater aquifers. And all along this ridge of chalk hills that I live on, it really is a hot spot for ball lightning. People see it a lot. They see it around aquifers and springs, and they see it in chalky areas. And it's no coincidence that people see it in the same places as you get crop circles, for example. We do get the occasional crop circle around here, and I'm really hoping that one day I might, you know, well, it's a long shot, but I might one day, you never know, get to film a crop circle for you, because they tend to appear, it's not been for a few years now, but they tend to appear over by Barton le Clay, where I filmed before. Remember that beautiful spring over in the Barton Hills, and Sharpenoe clappers, they appear on the fields around there. And there's a video I've seen on YouTube. Now let me have a look. I wrote it down. There's a video on YouTube. It's only about 45 seconds long. It's called Ball of Light, Wiltshire, by a lady called Kerry McKenna. That particular video shows very much what I saw, almost exactly. I suspect what I saw was a bit bigger than what she filmed, but it's difficult to tell. It depends on how intensely bright it was, etc, etc. But if you go and see that video there, it's only 45 seconds long. That's a pretty accurate image of what I saw. Other images of ball lightning show kind of plasma balls with all fuzzy edges and stuff. What I saw was a very clean, crisp ball of light. And I just remembered, there's another theory, which is a different one. Now this theory, they've actually managed to reproduce under laboratory conditions. They've actually made ball lightning happen, in a sense. What they've done is they bombarded people's brains with magnetism, basically, electromagnetism, and that caused people to have visual hallucinations. There are certain, you know, levels of magnetic whatever that you can blast into somebody's brain, and it'll induce some very specific visual hallucinations, and what they see is balls of light. So that is another possibility. That's interesting. Maybe there could be some sort of disturbance in the Earth's magnetic field, and if you're in the right place at the right time, it will make you see ball lightning. Or maybe it could be because there's a huge alien mothership just passing overhead, thus making it even more of a UFO experience. I don't suppose I'll ever get to see ball lightning again, so I'm pretty lucky to have seen it. It's a shame it happened when it did, because people weren't walking around with mobile phones even, let alone cameras on their phones. Not that my phone's even got a camera on it anyway, so it wouldn't make any difference, would it? Anyway, yeah, I don't suppose I'll ever see it again. So what I'm saying is, it's a shame in a way that I haven't got it on video. But you can go and take a look at that, what was it, Ball of Light Wiltshire video. I'll give you a fair idea of what I saw. I hope you found that mildly interesting. Point is, really, that even though I think I've explained it, it was still a pretty fantastic thing to see. You know, now keep your eyes open. You never know, you might get to see some yourself. See you later.
David, regards to your UFO stories, at one point I was working in BT and we took the contract for the military network, connecting personnel within bases to other bases and to landlines, etc. I also took the UFO sighting calls, which we had to log. Anyway, didn't get a lot of them surprisingly enough, but when they did come in, it would normally be a couple of calls that had come in on the same night from people in different parts of the UK, hundreds of miles away from each other, usually describing the same type of UFO. Occasionally you'd get someone reporting something and you'd think, complete bollocks. But when you and your colleagues get multiple calls on the same night, and you see them describing more or less the same thing, but in different parts of the country, especially when you look at the time they reported it happened, which we had to log, and you can see they lived hundreds of miles from each other, but the sightings were maybe 10-15 minutes apart, it does make you wonder. UFO, experimental military technology, who knows, but there is meant to be a US military disclosure later this month about UFOs. So absolutely, there has been cover-ups of some kind.
Hello everyone, this is Jeans and Jumper, and this is my story of my UFO encounter. Picture scene, 1994, Leicestershire primary school. It's summertime or late spring, and we're in the playground discussing the new latest football boots that have come out. This is how I can date it correctly. I remember it as if it was yesterday. There's two or three of us talking in the playground at the back, and a dinner lady nearby called Gail, and we were talking about the new Adidas Predator boots at the time, and I was just gazing to the distance, as I often do. That's where we were in the playground just there, and looking in this direction there was some pylons going across, looking like that, but a further distance, about a few miles away. So it wasn't as clear as that, but as I was looking at the pylons I noticed something different, something weird moving above it. Now the closest I can find of an image would be that. Now it looked like an elongated Tic Tac, but the colour was white, but it was like the colour white with a real bright light being shone against it, so it was just bright white. It was really, really bright. And what really got me was how it was with the pylons. It was above the top row of cables, and it was going across like that, and then back across, then back across, in a very quick darting motion, a lot smoother than I can do it with this this mouse cursor. So it's just going across, like that, really quick, really fast, from left to right, left to right, left to right, and it just made me freeze. And I was watching this for, felt like minutes, but it was probably seconds, and I quickly shouted to the dinner lady, as a 9-year-old child would do when you see such a crazy thing, and I just said, "What's that?" And when you're looking up for an adult for a reasoned response, and hers was just shock. She had no explanation of it whatsoever, and I just kept watching it, and we were silent there watching it, and it kept going like that, like that, like that. And then I kept watching it, but the dinner lady turned to speak to the girl, Liz, that we were with, and as it was going like that suddenly it stopped right there, and went poosh, shot it into the sky. I've never seen anything move that quick in my life, before or after. It just went poof, upwards and disappeared. The size of it just got smaller and smaller in an instant, and just it disappeared. And that's my story. Yeah, so bit weird. Remember it like yesterday. It's one of my most vivid memories of my life. Yeah, that's my story.
Right, so there you go. That was all the stories. I'll tell you what, I really enjoyed that. Very interesting stuff. Some stories a bit like mine, where it looked very unusual, strange, and then it can be explained. Some things 100% definitely unexplainable. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I hope you're having a good discussion about it. I would have been in the chat talking to you with these things anyway. If you're re-watching this, feel free to comment and let me know if you've got any stories. And sorry if you missed the video, anyone who wanted to join in. I did give people at least 2 weeks and 2 or 3 warnings that it was coming up, so I did try to get everyone in on the video. Yeah, fascinating stuff really, isn't it? Yeah, must be very interesting to see these things, and scary, and well, not necessarily scary. Sometimes it's just very bizarre situations, isn't it? But yeah. So I'm going to do a live stream now. So when this video finishes, which will be any minute now, you'll see the outro bit. Go to my channel and just look out for the main video. If you refresh a couple of times, go off the channel, come back on. Eventually that live video will pop up any minute now. Alright? I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to join the live stream so we can have a chat. Alright? See you later. And thank you everyone who joined in, I appreciate it. If it wasn't for you, these videos wouldn't get made, so yeah. I appreciate it. Cheers everyone. See you later. Welcome to the Spiroverse. Lots of people watching will not actually have any idea what the Spiroverse is. So in this documentary I'm going to try to explain to you the phenomenon known as the Spiroverse nether regions, and all of the other connected interworlds and other lore that goes with it. This all started with a live stream which I now think was being fed information subconsciously, possibly by the Spiroverse itself, to bring us into the fold and show us what's really going on. So what I'll do first is I think I will show you the live stream so that you can get the background of where this all started, and then I can give you some history and information of what I have found after doing some research. So before I play you the live stream highlights, I'll tell you a little bit of history about spiral pattern makers and the company who created them. I'm going to have to be careful with some of the wording I use due to trademark issues and copyright. So I'm going to call them spiral pattern makers from now on, and if I have to say the company name, I'll play a little clip so you will be aware of possibly what the company is. You can make your own mind up without it ever being said.
Don't do that, that's all he has, bro.
So basically, the more I research this, there is a phenomenon known as the Spiroverse, the Nether regions, and multiple other phenomenon with it, where if you use a spiral pattern maker, people can have quite bad experiences to the degree that you can disappear forever. And from what I've researched, it appears that people disappear and are tortured basically forever on an essential time loop. It appears some children go missing as well. The more I research this, it appears to be children in a bad home situation tend to be taken away, and children who are in a better situation tend to have bad experiences, like being scared, having nightmares. And when you look into it, the Spiroverse is part of a mass of multiple universes. And I suspect now that the children from the bad homes, the abused children, are being actually taken away to a better place. And the other children are just being warned away because where they are is perfectly fine. It appears that adults who do the spiral maker patterns, who are quite evil, tend to be taken away and tortured, or receive an injury called crinkle cut cock, which we'll talk about later. So that's the very basics of the Spiroverse. I will now show you a live stream of where we became aware of it, and then give you some more history afterwards. So what you're going to see now is around about 12-minute footage of the highlights of the live stream where we became acutely aware of the Spiroverse. Enjoy. Ain't Fragan said, do you think watching the Saw films subliminally made you buy a new Saw? You know what? Nice one. It might have. You know what? It might have. Because for years and years and years, I've been sawing away with this shitty saw that makes my shoulder fucking kill. Maybe it did. Maybe it finally spurred me on. I never thought about that. But yeah, maybe it finally did. Nick said, that's what those films were all along. A massive advert for big... Maybe, and I just didn't. And yes. You know what's happened, Nick? Right. So, all of the Saw films were a massive subliminal advert for B&Q. Once everyone had got enough saws, they changed the name, didn't they? To Jigsaw. There you are. Now they're trying to sell jigsaws. Now they've sold enough jigsaws, they've changed it into Spiral. Now, what a Spiral is, I don't know. That's a Spiral. Now I want to buy a Spiral. There you go. Dad said, I got given a Spiral when I was a kid. I once did a design that was so weird and sort of otherworldly, it frightened me, and I put it in the cupboard and never used it again. For fuck's sake. That said to Zed, weird you should say that. My dad got one as a kid and played with it once. I had a nightmare about it that night. Never played with it again. That's well weird, though, isn't it? Now you two say that, that's bizarre. Was you two like? Was they like? I don't know, opening up some fucking Spire fucking portal to fucking other world or something? Maybe you were. Maybe you'd done the exact combination that had opened up some fucking portal to the fucking netherworld. And maybe that's what Spire are. Maybe that's what they are. Nick said maybe Spire was sold under the table by Satanists. Maybe. See, there you go. Maybe they have got, like we all know you shouldn't mess with Ouija boards. There you go. What we need to do is make a film about Spire opening up a portal to hell, and then people will finally take them seriously. And I'm not taking the piss out of Luke or Zed there, because I just found it really amusing though that two people have had sort of weird nightmares about them. That may be a real, that may be like not a real thing, like a common thing. Bizarre, isn't it? Absolutely bizarre. 8 for Air Gunner said next it'll be an etch sketch. Yes, etch sketch. But I think honestly, the fact that now that two people have said they've had nightmares, it's a cursed toy. That just people don't talk about what it does. Yeah, there you go, Nick. How's Spire madness affected your family? If it's happened to 2 people, it must have happened to loads more. It's a thing, Nick. It's got to be. I'm going to have to research this now. And it's going to turn out that there have been kids doing Spire disappeared. Never to be seen ever again. And there's like a burn mark in the middle of the graph pattern. Nick said, imagine if we looked it up and there was actually a spike in missing kids on the day they came out. That would be proper weird, wouldn't it? I'm telling you, Nick, it's a real thing. It's real. It's real. And if it ain't real, it's real in some other universe, I'm telling you. That's what if there's something strange in your neighborhood, who are you going to call? Spirebusters. Who's willing, though? Who's going to be willing to tie a rope on them, get sucked in? You know, who's willing to do that? I don't know if I am. Dad said, you can do some hideous design graph, believe me. And you do get holes in the middle of them. Fuck, I'm not going to get any sleep tonight, am I? I'd say so. If I'd have known that it was affecting you that much, I probably would have shut up. But yes, I believe it's real. I believe it's real. Here you go, Zed. There's a new story for you. I would love you to write a horror story for next Halloween. I can't talk about the missing small one, Supreme Leader. Swirly Twirly will send the heavies after me with the ninja throwing spires. Oh, fucking hell. That didn't even cross my mind that they might have weapons. That's changed things slightly now. That has changed things slightly. Too busy thinking about demons, let alone things that might come in here. You know, come to our world. But I am convinced, Samurai, that what's happening is, and I've told these lot I'm deadly serious, right? Deadly serious. You know, not even going to wink at you. I look like I'd have a fit. So you do the Spire thing. What's happening is children do. Yeah, it's like, yes, like a Ouija board. Exactly that. They are. That's what I mentioned that. Yes. So you know how a Ouija board was once essentially a toy? Well, now we're convinced that Spire graph, if you do the wrong pattern, it opens up a portal to another world, sucks you in, and I reckon if you go back and look at all of the records for all of the children that ever went missing and never came back, they've definitely 100% been playing with Spire. 100%, telling you. But no one's ever noticed. I'm telling you. Oh, the demons are real. They torture people in various ways using satanic spiros. One being starting a large swirl and trapping your foreskin in it as it goes round till it eventually comes off. Samurai Bastard, what the hell have you guys been smoking? Oh God, I don't know. Maybe something's in the air. I don't know. I'll tell you what happened was basically two different people in the chat said that they used Spire and they both had terrible experiences from it. And I've put 2 and 2 together, come up with 15. And I'm now absolutely 100% convinced that Spire are evil and they're taking people. And Zed and Luke's dad are just lucky they're still here. Because, you know, they was nearly sucked into a netherworld portal, or probably nearly had their foreskins ripped off as well. So, you know, lucky escape there. Kenny's don't do that. TV and mirrors, hundreds of Spire foreskins fly out. Oh God. So now there's a load of people going around with I'm gonna have to draw a picture of this. Some of you may not be able to understand where I'm going with this. So now there's going to be a load of people. This will be quite a crude picture. I can now picture loads of people. This is how you know. How can you identify a Spire victim? Oh my God. You have seen that scar tissue. Fucking hell. Oh God. Nick said they've got a cock like a crinkle cut chip. Exactly, that's it. So Have you ever seen a crinkle cut cock? If you have, there's now a oh fucking hell. There's something about the word crinkle cut cock. It just sort of sounds perfectly, I don't know. Sounds like a real fucking thing. Oh my god. Without reality, they told me that they had to have a circumcision as an older teen because of infection. Now I know the truth. There you go. Now you do, Metallic. Now you do. Yeah, blaming it on an infection. Right. I reckon it's when you make the hole that you get sucked through. I think that's what it is. Oh, I get you. Yeah. So you're doing it too much. You create the hole. That hole opens up to the Spiroverse never world, sucks you in, and then never to be seen again. And while you're down there, people have managed to look through the hole and they've seen, these torture methods going on. Yeah, see you later, Peach. Sam Roberto, I'm going to go look for my kid's Spire. You'll be on later. Yeah, I will be, definitely. I'll definitely be on later. He said, I think if I use the Spire, put Slayer on backwards, I might be an idea of what we're up against. Just be careful, though. Samurai, definitely tie a chain around your waist or something, or at least stick a broom through your belt loop. And if they try and suck you down the hole, the broom will stop you going in. There you go. I just found a foolproof. Yeah, I can't think of the word, but yes, foolproof thing to stop you getting sucked into the Spiroverse Neverworld. That's what I just come back onto. Nick said, I don't think that'll help your case. Getting section. That was right. This stream is starting to seem like a fever dream. Where am I? Crinkle cut. Context is key. Wouldn't want to forget what happened to the foreskin on that dick pic. Fuck's sake. Black said, where's that YouTube visual bot when you need him? Talent reality, I have a feeling this is going to be one of those nights my neighbours will have to put up with my random outbursts of laughing. Crinkle cut said, I thought Mike was going to say, want to save yourself from Spire Demons. That actually, as I was saying it, I thought someone's going to think I'm saying that. Someone's definitely going to think I'm saying that. Some of it, I'll use my katana. Good idea. Camera buy's better. Thanks, Mike. I'll catch you later. See if you can get back on. I'm quite worried now. If you're going to do a Spire, well, let's all wish Samurai Bird good luck. Good luck, mate. Please come back. Spyro Foreskin collecting demon said, yo, Mike, did you summon me? I'm in for the CCC leftovers. Like vampires, you can hold up a cross. You know how to beat a fucking Spire demon? All you need is a pole, because the fucker can't suck you down the hole then. That said, me and 83 again, as of course. I don't. Thing is, what, mate? What I'll tell you why it just sort of came very organic, Zed. But it was because it sort of amused me that two people had the same experience. And in my head, as a sort of joke to myself, I thought that must be a common thing then. And then I thought, well, if that's a common thing, who knows? Right, hang on. What's Louise saying? Did she have a nightmare as well? Zed said, I said I did a pattern with it and it frightened me. And I locked it in the cupboard and never used it again. Yeah, that's amazing. I genuinely think that's fucking amazing. Louise said, yeah, I know when I played with one as a kid and looked at it for ages, it was like being on a trip. That's 3 people now. I'm telling you, it's fucking true. That was trying to suck her in, but the hole wasn't there. Louise, you was that close to being sucked into a Spiroverse never world. It's just you just happened to have not made a hole in it. If you'd have made a hole in that paper, you would have got sucked in there, and we would never even know you now. I'm telling you, you're so lucky. Zed's lucky he chucked it in the cupboard. Luke's dad had nightmares about it. Count yourself lucky, I'm telling you. You know, that's 3 people who've corroborated this story now, telling you it's 100% true. 100% true. You need to spread the word. Everybody spread the word. So there you go. That was the live stream. And as you can see, there was quite a few people saying that they have bad experiences from spirographs, and just the way it came about seemed like we was being subconsciously led down a path to discover this phenomenon. And the more I looked into it, the more I found. So I did some research into the company that makes these spiral pattern makers.
Stop that, that's all she has, bro.
And you'll be surprised, or you may not be when you hear the information. So I did some research into the company that makes the spiral pattern makers, and I was quite surprised when I found the same famous company that makes the spiral makers make quite a few other toys, but there is one very famous toy that they make. One that has a very evil reputation. The Ouija board. So straight away I think there's a connection there. So there it is there. There is some proof that it comes from the same lineage as the Ouija board. And people take those very seriously. Another thing that happened after the live stream, I was sent a clip from The Simpsons of all places. And we all know that The Simpsons have pretty much predicted everything. Just watch this clip.
Yo, Dr. S, have you seen Millhouse today?
No.
Okay, thanks.
Wait, did you know that there's a direct correlation between the decline of spirograph and the rise in gang activity? Think about it.
I will.
No, you won't.
So there you go. What I gather from that clip is the spirograph will take children from bad homes to a better place. But if children are not using spirographs, those children from broken homes are often going on to join gangs. So there you go. The Simpsons predicted it, as they often do. Another phenomenon I had while trying to research the Spiroverse, every single time I tried to go back onto my own videos, it would not work. I would keep getting patterns and pictures coming up every single time I tried to click on these videos. Multiple times. So I'd click the video and it would just be colours. Click the video, it would just be colours. Click the video, it would just be colours. I now suspect that was something from the Spiroverse potentially trying to send me signals on the colour combinations to open a spiral portal. Which, no thank you, I'm not doing that. And then the last thing to happen after the live stream was what happened to Samurai Bird. So you saw Samurai Bird's comments in the live stream. Well, later on, after he used a spiral pattern maker, he went to work and he fell off of a ladder, was very badly injured. I now suspect that may have been some kind of warning to him not to try risking opening the Spiroverse portals. He was very badly hurt. But that is the nature of the Spiroverse. So we've done some history and I've told you the facts. I'll just go over a little recap now. So, the Spiroverse. Started a live stream, the phenomenon was created, I researched it, it appears it's real. Evil adults tend to be teleported to a place where they are tortured for the rest of their existence from spiral pattern maker type blades and other methods. This has been observed, but only a few times, and the footage is always very bad. People have managed to record down a Spiroverse portal and the footage is often very frightening. Not very good quality, but horrific. People who avoid going down the portals tend to receive an injury called crinkle cut cock, which can consist of either just your foreskin being cut off in a sort of crinkle cut pattern, or your whole entire penis is cut completely in half, leaving just a crinkle cut almost cauterized flesh at the tip. Children from broken homes, abused children, tend to be taken away, and we suspect they're being taken away to an actual better place now. And lots of other children tend to have bad experiences from them. Headaches, nightmares, trippy sort of experiences, or just fear of the actual item and want to get rid of it. We now have some interviews with some people I've met along the way making this documentary. I've been travelling extensively across the country and the world to interview people to do with the Spiroverse. It's very, very difficult to get people to talk on camera. Most people will either want to talk with a voice changer or their face hidden, or not at all. These are 4 interviews I managed to get in relation to the Spiroverse. I hope you enjoyed them. They were quite difficult to get. The first interview you're going to see is with a lady I met called Wendy, whose son went missing around about 10 years ago. He has never been seen since, but due to much research on my part and one of the later interviewees, we have determined that he was probably taken away through a Spiroverse portal and taken to a better place.
My son went missing 10 years ago. I never thought much of it at the time. I always suspected his dad took him. We did look for him for an afternoon. The neighbor even put up some missing posters, but he was never seen again. A year later, Mr. Dessard visited me and told me about the Spiroverse and that he had seen the posters and the spiral pattern maker information. I never trusted that man, but he told me all about the other missing kids and how it goes with the spirals. That boy was always messing with those bloody things. I hated them. They made me feel all funny like, but he seemed to like them in a weird way. Dessard asked me if there was a spiral with a burnt hole in it. I said I wasn't sure. I never liked looking at that crap, and I slung them all away, but there could have been a burned one. Have you seen my son? Here's a picture of him the day he went missing. Take no notice of the bruises. He was a clumsy boy. I never did nothing to him, so don't say I did.
I suspect Wendy's son has been taken to a better place. It's not my place to say that, but the environment that Wendy was bringing up her child was not the kind of place you'd want a child growing up. She claims in her interview that she'd chucked away all of the spiral patterns he did. That's a lie. Under his bed, I found this. The word angel is misspelled at the top. This is what leads me to believe that he was taken away to a better place, away from this abusing household. I also found under his bed this spiral with a burnt hole in the middle. The next interview will be with a mental patient I met, Arthur Quatrepo. He's been in the hospital for quite a while. I suspect he is mentally ill, but I also believe his story. He showed me physical evidence, and just use your imagination, but I have seen a crinkle cut cock firsthand and it is not pretty. It was shocking.
I've been in here 6 years. Why won't these bastards believe me? It was Spyro demons. They mutilated me. I was only messing around with that fucking spiral maker. I heard you could see into other worlds if you did it the right way, and it's true. Only it's not what you think it is. It's not a nice place. They say you can get sucked in unless you wear a safety broomstick attachment. So I wore one, thinking I'd be alright. What those fuckers never told me was that if you do wear it, the demons just cut your cock off instead. Or only the foreskin if you're lucky, if you can call that lucky. Look at me now. They have me locked in here, cock cut to ribbons. You ever seen a crinkle cut cock? I'll show you. You just hold on there, I'll show you, then you'll believe me. Please get me out of here. I still see those fucking patterns in my dreams.
As soon as Arthur had showed me his crinkle cut cock, he was taken away by the nurses. And he was shouting, "They're trying to open a portal! They're trying to open a portal!" I've since spoken to more patients, and it appears that there are quite a few patients in that asylum who rant and rave about the Spiroverse, spiral pattern makers, portals, Spiroverse gates. I think at a later date I'm going to have to investigate the asylum a lot more. Something's going on there. Mark Desard. What can I say about Mark, other than he is probably one of the weirdest people I've ever met. Describes himself as an S&M enthusiast, Spiroverse investigator, and connoisseur of the weird and wonderful. When I met Mark, it turns out he knows quite a lot about the Spiroverse. Having already met Wendy, as you heard her speak about him, he's been researching the Spiroverse for quite a while, and I suspect for evil intent, possibly for his own gratification, sexual gratification. As I've mentioned, Mark Desard is a very weird man.
I found out about the Spiroverse in the late 90s after being arrested at an S&M event. Some unlucky chap got cut, shall we say, in the groin area, and I was questioned over something called CCC. I had no idea at the time. I would say I'm a connoisseur of the weird and bizarre, so started to look into it. After much research, it appears certain children would disappear when using a spiral maker, mostly abused ones for some reason, and the children with good homes seemed to have adverse reaction to the spirals, but that was all. I was never interested in the kids. It was the teleporting I wanted to know about. If anything, those abused ones were probably getting taken to a better place, and the other kids got a warning to stop using them. If you look up any information about the Spiroverse, it all comes back to multiple universes. I wanted to see those other places. Surely everyone wants to see the unknown, feel new feelings and pleasure. After much research, it appears certain patterns will open a portal. My initial thoughts were to open a small portal and look in, but that's when you get crinkle cut cock or worse. So I thought I could use a telescopic sight and a camera to film it, aim it down the portal. I also handcuffed my leg to the radiator over there, and then I used a broom in my trousers belt loop to stop me going down the hole. They now call those safety broomstick attachments in the Spiroverse investigation groups. Do you want to see the footage? We can have some dinner after. Fancy a drink?
There's his footage. Very grainy, but you can see the discs, you can see the torture, you can see the blood. have no idea who that is happening to, but as far as I'm aware, that happens eternally once you're taken there. One other thing I would like to mention is Mr. Dessard did cook me dinner. He invited me to the dining room and bought us out a meal. I now suspect Dessard is potentially trying to receive crinkle-cut cock. I have no evidence of this. As I mentioned, I think he's slightly insane. Mark Dessard is now missing, presumed dead by the police. I suspect he's been taken to the Spiroverse. And having travelled to America, I finally interviewed Otis. He had been promising me a very interesting story for quite a while. I met him. He couldn't really walk properly at the time. Wouldn't tell me why. He said I would find out during the interview.
This one time I was out drinking with Billy Sue and Jeb. We'd been out hunting and drinking, and had a right good old time. Spent the whole weekend shooting shit, and drinking beers. Boy, we had a good time. Well, it was good till the spiral stuff came up. I got hurt real bad when we tried that shit. Never again. I can still hardly walk right now. One of them boys mentioned those spiral maker thingies being in the cabin. Jeb reckoned if you did it right you could call a genie or some shit. BS, that's what we call Billy Sue. Said it ain't a genie, it's a demon. And you need to use a protective stick to stop them hurting you. We started daring each other to try it, and I got double dared, so had to do it then. We went back to the cabin and Jeb found the spiral thing out. Even then I didn't like the look of it. Looks like hundreds of teeth to me. So we lay the paper down, and get them toothy rings out, and then I remember. You guys said I had to use a stick to protect me. So BS gets a nice big old stick and says I need to put it down between my ass cheeks. So I get that big old cane. I look at the top, decide no. Then the bottom, that looks better, and I rammed it right up my ass. My thinking was the more it went in the better the protection. I never felt pain like that before. There was blood and the feeling of ripping. I was in agony. Then I fainted. By the time I woke up the boys said the genie and been and gone. I never did get a wish or see a demon, and to top it all my ass still hurts, and that was my experience with a spiral maker.
So there you go. That one was a complete waste of time.
After a hard day's graft, nothing quite relaxes me. Like a nice cold pint of vodka. God dear. So don't be an arse. Get a WeaponCollector glass.
Now that I've started to research the Spiroverse, it appears it is becoming quite a phenomenon. The more I search, the more I find evidence. If you look online, you can find various products and videos and multiple medias that are connected with the Spiroverse. one of which is a book. This book. Published by myself and written by Z0Z7. I will now give you a reading. Beware the Spiroverse by Z0Z7. Arnold Finch was not a happy man. He had thought when he purchased Daphne Alice's debt from the bank that he'd be able to swindle her out of some valuable antiques by undervaluing them. But the old bag didn't have any antiques. All she had was a very few slightly interesting looking items and a load of tat. Oh well, he'd just have to take the best looking pieces, not telling her what they might really be worth, of course, and seeing what he'd get for them. He should still make a big profit. He sighed heavily and pointed at the door. "What's in there?" he asked. "That's my children's bedroom. There won't be anything in there you'd be interested in. Just some old toys," Daphne told him. Old toys, Arnold thought. Some of those might interest some collectors, I know. Then another thought occurred to him. "Why don't you ask your children to pay off your debt?" he asked. Daphne's eyes started to fill and a couple of tears rolled down her cheeks. "My children passed away many years ago, sir," she told him. Arnold had to admit he liked the way she called him sir. That wasn't what most people called him, although some of the names they called him did indeed start with an S. "They were killed in a car accident along with their father when they were only 7 years old. You see, there was this van driver who..." Yes, I'm sure it's all very sad," Arnold told her. "But that's unimportant. I need to see what's in there." He then pushed the door open and stepped into the room. When he stepped into the room and looked around, his eyes widened in surprise. The room looked as if it was still in use, with the beds made up, ready to be used, toys laying on the floor as if they'd only just had someone playing with them. When he smiled, some of those toys looked quite old. The toy cars might well worth be something, and those Action Man figures might make a few quid as well. But it was the teddy bears and the dolls that really interested him. Some of them were probably handed down from older family members and could be pretty valuable. And an old train set was probably worth a couple of £100, if not more, at least. Arnold quickly calmed himself down, took a deep breath and sighed. "Well, let's see what we have here," he said, trying to sound disappointed. "I suppose some of these might be worth a few pounds." Daphne looked at him with horror in her eyes. "Oh no, sir, not my children's toys. Please, sir, not them." Arnold gave her a stern look. "Mrs. Ellis, you still owe £450. We have to get that debt down a bit, haven't we?" "I explained to the bank why I got behind in payments," Daphne told him in a quiet voice. "It's not really my fault. The people who I did cleaning for moved away. I haven't been able to find a replacement for them yet." "You are not dealing with the bank now, Mrs. Ellis," Arnold told her. "They passed your debt on to me." He spread his hands and tried to look innocent. "And I'm not a rich man." A complete lie. Arnold was really quite wealthy. "And I have to eat like everyone else." Daphne's expression made it clear that in her opinion he probably relied on the fresh blood of young virgins for his sustenance. But she said nothing. Arnold didn't like that look at all. It annoyed him, and he decided to make her pay for it. "Well, now we have that sorted, let's see what we have here, shall we?" he said, doing his best not to let his annoyance show. He went round the room picking up the toys and making little disappointed sounds. He put the train set, the toy cars, the dolls and the teddy bears in a neat pile. "I might be able to get perhaps £4 or £5 each for these, I suppose," he lied. "I don't suppose you have the boxes for them, do you?" "I have the boxes for the cars," Daphne told him. "My husband liked to keep them. He never said why, though." "Some people just like to keep them for some reason, I don't know why," Arnold lied. "Perhaps you could get them for me. It'll help me transport them." Daphne left the room saying, "I'll see if I can find them. I think they're under the stairs." As soon as she'd left the room, Arnold grinned. He'd noticed that a couple of the bears were by Stife and looked pretty old. He had a feeling that the big white one might even pay for the debt on its own, and the train set and the toy cars would no doubt provide him with a handsome profit. He noticed some very collectible ones, including a 60s Batmobile and an original James Bond Aston Martin, along with a Chitty Bang Bang. He had an idea that the John Steed Bentley and the Emma Peel Lotus were somewhat valuable as well, especially as they were complete and in good condition, and had their original boxes as well. Maybe there was something else with a bit of value, he thought. He'd better just check. Sweeping his eyes around the room, he noticed a pile of board games. Crossing over to them, he picked them up one by one. He picked up a Spirograph box. Well, fuck all, he muttered. And Daphne came back into the room. "I've put the boxes in the hall for you," she said sadly. Then she saw what he was holding. "No, not that one. It's my children's favourite." "Oh no, please, not that one," she wailed. Arnold smiled inwardly. This was his chance to get revenge for that look. "I'm sorry, I'm afraid I shall have to take this as well," he told her. For an instant it looked like Daphne was going to attack him, and Arnold took a step back and raised his hands defensively. But then Daphne's shoulders slumped, and she said, "Then take it and leave, damn you." She stared hard at him for a second. "And remember this," she told him. "Evil comes to he who does evil." She then turned and walked out of the room, headed towards the kitchen. Arnold had a vision of large cook's knives and decided he'd better collect his spoils and leave quite quickly. Tossing the Spirograph onto the pile, he went to his van and took out some large cardboard boxes. These he took into the house and filled with the toys and a few of the other pieces he had decided to take. Then he loaded them into the van. From inside the house he could hear Daphne sobbing her heart out. He was of course totally unmoved by the distress. "Serves the hideous old cow right for looking at me like that," was his only thought as he drove off. Arriving back at his own home, Arnold backed his van into his garage, got out, unlocked and opened the garage door. He then turned back to the van, opened both its doors and started to pile the boxes onto the garage floor. It didn't take him long, and he closed the door with a feeling of satisfaction. Quickly he locked the van up and turned to walk up the short path to his front door. That was when he noticed the Spirograph box. It was lying a couple of inches up the path. "That's strange," he thought. "I'm sure I'll put that in one of the boxes." He bent down and picked it up, intending to put it with the other stuff, but then thought, "I can't be asked to do it now. I'll do it in the morning." Once inside, he went into his sitting room and placed the box on the coffee table. "So I don't miss it in the morning," he thought. Then he went and made himself a cup of tea, which he took back into the sitting room. Then he lit a cigarette and settled himself comfortably on the sofa and congratulated himself on his haul. Once he'd finished his tea and his smoke, Arnold stood up. "I think I'll go down the pub tonight to celebrate. There's bound to be someone there who owes me money, who'll buy me a few drinks. Just to stay on my good side." He grinned at the thought. "I'll just have to eat something first, then have a shower. Got to keep up appearances after all." Arnold prided himself on always looking smart. He had a special going out suit made in Savile Row that he swindled from a wealthy widow after her husband had died by claiming to be from a charity. He asked her if there was any old clothes she had that she could donate. He intended selling the clothes, probably on eBay. But when he discovered the suits, as well as some of the very nice and expensive looking shirts fitted him, he decided to keep them. He decided to have his favourite meal, an omelette. Omelettes were cheap to make and didn't use much electricity to cook. "I think I'll use 2 eggs tonight," he thought. "Just this once. It's a celebration after all. I think I'll add a bit of ham and maybe some cheese." Heading towards the kitchen, he suddenly stopped in his tracks. "Perhaps I won't add any cheese," he muttered. "No point going overboard after all." So saying, he carried on into the kitchen. As soon as he finished his meal, Arnold got up and went into his bathroom. Turning on the shower, he quickly got undressed and stepped under the warm jets of water. Arnold always had warm showers. Hot showers cost too much in his opinion, and they didn't get you any cleaner. He was in the middle of his ablutions when he heard a noise come from the sitting room. For a couple of seconds he couldn't work out what the sound was. Then he realised it was the sound of children laughing. "Some little bastards have gotten in here somehow," he thought angrily. I don't know how they did, but I'll make them wish they hadn't. Turning the water off, Arnold stepped out of his shower and grabbed his dressing gown. Tying it loosely in his haste, he rushed towards the sitting room, shouting, "Just you fucking wait until I get in there, you little sods. I'll give you what for." Bursting into the sitting room, he was surprised to see there was no children to be seen. The sound of their laughter had stopped as well. They had definitely been in there. He could see the spirograph had not only been removed from its box, but they'd been playing with it. The bloody cheek of them, he thought. There was also a large sheet of paper on the coffee table with the funny little tooth wheels that the games used still attached, and some kind of design had been drawn on it. Arnold peered at it. It certainly was an odd looking thing. It was made up of many intersecting circles and curving lines, and there were many other strange, almost symbol-like swirls inside and outside of it. Looking at it sent a shiver up Arnold's spine. It seemed almost unnatural, like something a mind not of this world had drawn. Then Arnold noticed that the lines in the centre had each crossed so many times it looked like they had gone through the paper and left a small hole. I bet they've marked the table as well, the little shits, Arnold thought, growing even more angry. I'd better look. Bending over the table, intending to lift the piece of paper so he could see the damage that had been done, Arnold suddenly lurched down forwards as his still wet feet slipped on the parquet flooring he had put down in most of the rooms. Carpets were cheaper, but they had to be cleaned with a vacuum cleaner, and those were expensive not only to buy but also had a cost to run. A wooden floor could be kept clean with soft broom and occasional wipe down with a damp mop. Besides, carpets could wear out and wood lasted longer. Yelling in surprise, Arnold fell across the table, his dressing gown flapping open as he did so. Arnold gave a grunt in pain as his hips and groin impacted somewhat painfully with both the design and the wheels. With a slight groan, Arnold grasped the edges of the table with both hands and started to carefully push himself up, remembering the pins had been used to hold the wheels down, and he didn't want there to be any accidents that might involve those. He had just managed to slowly raise his upper body when he realised with a shock that he couldn't lift his hips. What the fuck? He thought, and tried to raise his hips again. They wouldn't budge. Then he noticed a feeling of suction pulling down on his groin, and it seemed to be getting stronger. In a rising panic, he tried once again to lift his hips from the table. That was when the pain started. Slowly at first, but rising rapidly, his penis started to feel a bit sore. It changed quickly, to first pain, then agony. It felt like something was chewing on his manhood. With a terrified scream and almost superhuman strength, Arnold pushed hard on the table, thrust upwards with his hips. With an agonising pain shooting through his groin, Arnold jerked upright. He was free. Gingerly, Arnold felt his crotch. Something didn't feel right. He looked down and saw with horror what had happened. His foreskin had almost been completely ripped off. There was only a small fragment of it left around the tip of his penis. But the worst thing was, his penis had grooves in it. Grooves that went all around its circumference. Not only that, it was only attached to him by a tiny strap of flesh about the size of a piece of cotton. As he looked, the skin gave way. His penis fell to the floor with a light slap and rolled under the table. As he looked, Arnold noticed that strangely he wasn't bleeding. It was as if the terrible wound had been cauterized in some fashion. This was little consolation though, and Arnold gave a piteous groan and turned, intending to get his phone from the bedroom and call an ambulance. It was then that he realised that the suction coming from the table had noticeably grown in strength. Not only that, it was getting stronger. Fearfully, Arnold twisted around and saw that a large hole had appeared in the table where the design had been, and the hole was getting wider with every second. He also noticed that his penis was still under the table, rapidly vibrating as the suction tried to pull it in every direction at once. Giving a scream of terror, Arnold turned back to the door and started to run. But despite his best efforts, the suction pulled him steadily backwards towards the ever-growing hole, pulling his loosely tied dressing gown from his body. Desperately, Arnold flung his hands out and grabbed the door frame in front of him. He felt his legs rise up until he was parallel with the floor. It was then he noticed the broom he used to sweep the floor leaning against the wall. It was close to him, and a sudden idea flashed into his head. He grabbed the broom and rammed its handle between his buttocks and up into his rectum. To his surprise, he felt a twinge of pleasure as he did so. This should stop me from being sucked in, he thought. I'll be too long for it. Sadly for Arnold, his plan didn't work. The suction grew even greater in strength when he lost his grip. This time, though, he didn't land flat on the table. He felt something grab him and turn him until he was suspended vertically over the ever-widening hole. Then, with a desperate scream, he was pulled rapidly into the dark depths. 10 seconds later, the remains of the broom shot out of the hole in a spray of bristles and sliced pieces of wood, some of which had unpleasant-looking brown stains on them. In a way, that made it look like something hadn't liked the taste of them and had spat them out. One last scream of terror from Arnold followed them, then there was silence. Hearing Arnold's screams, his neighbours rushed outside to see what was happening. Quickly realising that they were coming from Arnold's house, they rushed over to his house. As they did so, the screaming stopped. Reaching the front door, they rang the doorbell. There was no reply, so they rang it again. The house remained silent. They quickly checked the back door, but that too was locked, and there was no answer to their knocking. They briefly discussed breaking the window to gain access, but decided against it. Arnold would probably sue them for the damages. So instead, one of them phoned the police, telling the operator what had happened. It sounded like he was being murdered, she said dramatically. This was somewhat ruined by another of his neighbours saying, loud enough to be overheard on the phone, "I bloody hope so, the bastard." PC Michael Maker was in the local park and was in the process of arresting a jogger who he'd caught having a shit behind some bushes when his radio crackled. He told the hapless jogger to wait while he answered, and to pull your trackies up for fuck's sake. On being told to go and see what was happening at Arnold's address, he decided to let the jogger off with a quick bollocking, being first on the scene of a possible GBH or even maybe a murder. Do his career a lot more good than bringing in some bastard for having a crap in a public place. Having delivered said bollocking, and watched with great amusement the jogger running off whilst trying not to move his clenched arse cheeks, PC Maker hurried to Arnold's address. Upon reaching his destination, he told the large group of neighbours to stand back. "This is now police business," he told them. "I shall deal with this." So saying, he walked up to the door and rang the bell. "We've already tried that, you idiot," said the voices behind him. Swiftly, he turned round to see who had made the disrespectful comment. There were just innocent faces staring back at him. "I suppose you've checked the back door as well?" he asked somewhat grumpily, receiving answers of course." He thought for a few seconds. "Well then, I'll have to break a window and get in that way. Can one of you fetch me a towel? I want to wrap my hand in it so I don't get cut." A neighbour from the house next door obliged, and he wrapped it round his hand and forearm, then drew his baton. It took a couple of hard swings to shatter the window, and he used the baton to remove as many shards of glass from the frame as he could. He then climbed into Arnold's sitting room. After a quick glance around and seeing, to his disappointment, that the room contained no body, he pulled on a pair of latex gloves and proceeded quickly looking around the rest of the house. Still finding no scenes of a crime being committed, he made his way back to the sitting room and started to look round more closely. There were brush bristles, bits of wood lying all over the floor, which was strange, and the coffee table had a piece of paper lying on it. The piece of paper was blank, but had a large hole in its centre that looked like the inner serrated edge had been exposed to something hot, being a dark brown colour. "That's weird," he thought. "The table doesn't look scorched at all. Maybe something underneath caused the burning. I'll take a look." He lifted up one edge of the table and scrutinised it. The underneath was unmarked. He then noticed something lying on the floor by his feet. "Hello," he thought. "Someone's a messy eater." Then he looked at the object more closely. His face went white, and bile rose in his throat. Making gagging noises, he ran to the front door, unlocked it, and stepped outside. "Everyone keep back," he told the waiting neighbours with some difficulty. "This is now a crime scene." In the distance he could hear the sound of approaching police car sirens. That'll be Bert and Harry. They love putting on the blues and twos, he thought. Thank fuck for that, I can let them deal with this now. Then he threw up on the garden path. Arnold woke up in almost total darkness. All he could see were small translucent slivers of something floating nearby. There seemed to be a lot of them. Ignoring them for a moment, he reached down experimentally, hoping what he feared hadn't happened. With a sick feeling, he realised that his penis was indeed gone. Then he remembered his feet slipping on the parquet floor. It occurred to him that perhaps he had fallen over in his sitting room and hit his head. Maybe this was just a terrible dream whilst he was unconscious. Then again, did you dream when you were knocked out? He didn't know, but he thought it might be possible. Then his attention was captured by a flicker of movement. The translucent slivers were moving towards him, and there were a lot of them, a hell of a lot, hundreds in fact. What were they? Why were they moving towards him? Arnold didn't know, but he had a terrible feeling he wasn't to like it when he found out. As they got closer, he realised they were flat discs, very much like the Spirograph ones he'd seen on the coffee table. No, he was wrong. They were Spirograph discs. But these didn't seem to be made out of plastic. The material looked more like glass. Slowly the discs moved closer. He twisted round and saw with horror that the discs were all around him. Closer and closer came the discs, until they were mere inches from his body. When they began to spin and move towards him once more. Arnold screamed in pain as the discs made contact with his body and their teeth bit into it. Now the discs moved forward more slowly, and Arnold could see the minuscule pieces of flesh spurting out, and then forming a red cloud that slowly floated away in the surrounding darkness. When he saw no more as the disc bit into his eyes, and with a whining sound bit into his skull, for what seemed like forever. Arnold was held in place as the discs did their work. Then with a last gasp, the discs finally cut their way into his skull and into his brain, and then he felt no more. Desk Sergeant Osbert Lettsby. Osbert had been put on desk duty for being too enthusiastic with his baton and/or taser when arresting unresisting suspects. To such an extent that if anyone complained of rough treatment, they'd be told, "That's nothing. You should just be glad it isn't Sergeant Lettsby having you. You'd know all about that." Sergeant Lettsby was on his way to the canteen for lunch when he heard DC Hadafew walking towards him with a look of consternation on her face. "There you are, Sarge," she said. "There's a problem. It's PC Maker. I found him outside, sitting against the wall, crying. I've put him in one of the interview rooms. I'll show you." Following her, as she led the way, Osbert wondered what on earth could be wrong with PC Maker. The lad was normally solid as a rock. Upon entering the room, Osbert was shocked to find PC Maker sat with his elbows resting on the table, with an untouched cup of tea in front of him, and his face buried in his hands, sobbing softly. Making his way to the table, Osbert sat opposite the distraught constable and asked gently, "What is it, lad? What's happened to cause all this?" PC Maker raised his face from his hands and looked at the sergeant, a look of revulsion mixed with dismay on his face. "I saw it, Sarge," he blurted. "I was the first one to see it. At first I thought it was a piece of hot dog some messy eater had dropped on the floor, and some mice had nibbled at it. But it wasn't, Sarge. It wasn't. It was a cock. A crinkle-cut cock." He then covered his face with his hand once again. As Osbert sat aghast, trying to ignore the vision forming in his mind, he heard the softly spoken words, "I'll never eat a hot dog again." Arnold woke up. He had no idea how many times he'd gone through the agony of having his body slowly being sliced apart by those small whirling teeth, but it must have been at least a dozen. "I must have died and gone to hell," he muttered, as he watched the discs form up once again. Then he heard a voice in his head. It was a soft voice that somehow managed to sound a bit plasticky. "No," said the voice, "you are not dead. In fact, even if you wished it to be so, you would never be allowed to die. And no, you are not in hell. You are in our realm, and here you will stay, for you are our plaything." Arnold then realised that it was his fate to be slowly sliced apart, again and again and again, for all of eternity. He gave a scream of utter despair once more, and the discs started spinning and closed in around him. Epilogue. Daphne opened her front door the next morning, intending to go to the local shop and buy some milk. As she stepped outside, she noticed something lying on the floor on the path in front of her. With a small shock, she realised it was the spirograph box that Arnold had taken away from her the day before. Well, well, she thought, Mr. Finch knew how much it meant to me, and has second thoughts about keeping it. I may have misjudged him. Perhaps he isn't so bad after all. She then picked up the box and carried it inside, and up to the children's bedroom, where she placed it on top of the pile of board games. There, she said, back in its proper place. Then she went downstairs, left the house, and went to buy her milk. Meanwhile, in another place, first star on the left, carry on till midnight. Arnold Finch kept screaming and screaming and screaming. Forever. So there you go. That is the phenomenon known as the Spiroverse and the Nether regions. Be very careful if you ever use a spiral pattern maker. It could be your undoing. The proof is there. Let me know what you think. If you had experiences with the Spiroverse, even down to something minor, please let me know in the comments, because there will be a part 2 to this documentary. At a later date, there's going to be a full feature film. Don't have nightmares. Don't get crinkle cut cock. Sleep well. Goodbye.